Students, today I will be presenting before you the last part of the essay by J.B. Priestley, Travel by Train. So we have already come across different kinds of travelers that the essayist meets when he is traveling by train. Now, if you turn to page 16 in your textbook, we will be dealing with the last part. You can refer to your text also. Those of you who still don't have a text, please refer to the presentation before you. So let's continue with the presentation today. The last part. There is one more type of traveler. So this is the last kind of person that the essayist is explaining in this essay. There is one more type of traveler that must be mentioned here, if only for the guidance of the young and the simple. This is for the young people who have just started traveling, and they have to be careful about the different people that they meet on the train. And now he says, I have to mention one more person, especially for the young people, and he is usually an elderly man, an old man, neatly dressed, well dressed, but a little tobacco stained. Tobacco stained. This elderly gentleman has been smoking. Okay, maybe his fingers or his teeth or his clothes. Usually, it refers to the discolorization of the teeth of the elderly gentleman because of constant smoking. And you can see him seated in a corner, and he opens the conversation by pulling out a gold hunter. A gold hunter is a pocket watch, and remarking that the train is at least 3 minutes behind time. So this man is a sticker to schedule, let us say, and he sits in a corner of it of the train, and he pulls out a watch and looks at the time. And how does he begin his conversation? He tells the person sitting next to him in the compartment that this train is 3 minutes late. Then, with the slightest encouragement, if the person whom he is addressing says yes, or always trains are late, or something like that, then with the slightest encouragement, when he comes to know that you are willing to listen to him, he will begin to talk, and his talk will be all of trains. He will talk about nothing else but trains and trains and trains, as some men discuss their acquaintances, or others speak of violins or roses. So he talks of trains. He talks about their history, their quality, and their destiny. Some men like to talk about acquaintances. They like to talk about their friends or their children or their spouses. And there are other people who love to talk about musical instruments or about flowers. So this man has uh, an addiction to talk only about trains. And what does he talk about trains? Just as you talk about your family history or your sister's family or something like that, he goes on talking about the history of trains. He talks about the quality of these trains and where their destiny. What will happen to them after they are no longer in use, or what has happened to the past trains, how their routes have been diverted, and so on. All his days and nights seem to have been passed in railway carriages all his readings seem to have been in timetables. So he knows exactly when each train is going to depart from a particular station, when it is going to arrive at a particular station, and by how many minutes it's going to be late. He can recognize the trains which are there on the other tracks and so on. So he will tell you of the 12:35 from this place, and the 3:49 from the other place, and how the 10:18 ran so and so to so and so in such a time, and how the 8:26 was taken off and the 5:10 was put on. So he will tell you, as he is familiar with the timetable of the train. So he will tell you which train is going to start from a particular place is 12:35, or another train which is going to start at 3:49, and how the train which starts at 10:18 runs from this place to this place at this particular time, and how the 8:26 train was cancelled, and how the 5:10 train was started. So all these stories, the history of the trains, he will be able to tell you, and the greatness of his subject moves him to eloquence. He's so happy that he knows, or confident that he knows so much about the railway timings, and that you are interested in his talk, that very fluently with non-stop. Okay? He keeps on talking about different trains, and there is passion and mastery in his voice. There is passion, there is love for trains in his voice. There is mastery. You can make out that he is very proficient about these railway timings, the names of the trains, the number of the trains, the location from where they are going to depart and arrive, and so on. Now, wailing over a mixed connection or a departed hero of trains, now exultantly proclaiming the glories of a non-stop express or a wonderful run to time. So he keeps on talking about or feeling sad, wailing, now wailing over a missed connection. Or he talks about how some trains have been pulled off, and how they are not running anymore. Or he is talking about a departed hero, a train which is non-existent now, a departed hero of trains. Or now exultantly proclaiming, he praises the glories of the non-stop express or a wonderful run to time. So he talks about old trains and how he has traveled in them and so on. However, dead you were to the passion. Even if you are not interested in what he is saying, you don't want to listen, the splendor, the beauty, the brilliance, the pathos, the sorrow in this matter of trains, in the way he is telling you about these different trains before he has done with you, you will be ready to weep over the 7:37 and cry out in ecstasy at the sight of the 2:52. So you become addicted, even though you are not interested in listening to you. He has put poured that passion into you, that when you see that the 7:37 train is not running, you feel very sad, and you feel very happy when you see the 2:52 train. That is, he has passed on that enthusiasm, that love for that the train, the timings of the train, or the sight of the train excites you too. And finally, he says, beware of the elderly man. there are other people, some people who love to talk, but now you should be careful about the elderly man who sits in the corner of the carriage and says that the train is 2 minutes behind time. For he is the ancient mariner of railway travelers and will hold you with his glittering eyes. So who have the young people to be careful about? Have to be careful about the elderly gentleman who sits in the corner of the carriage and is watching everything that is going on. Okay? With a glittering eye, with a shining eyes. He is interested in what is going on, about your reaction, about what you are going to say, and he will tell you, look, this man is wrong. He will point out and he will say, this train is not 3 minutes behind time, it is 2 minutes behind time, for he is the ancient mariner. Ancient mariner refers to an old sailor in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, who has a glittering eye and who narrates a bewitching story. So he is compared, this elderly gentleman who is sitting in the corner and watching what is going on. He is like the ancient mariner in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. He knows many stories and you have to be very careful about this man. Now students, I will give you a brief summary of the prose which we have dealt with in 3 parts. So in this prose, Priestley describes short caricatures of the middle-aged woman, the heavy carriers, the non-stop eaters, the noisy children, the cranks, the innocent people, the mighty sleepers, the seafaring men, the confidential strangers, and the elderly man. So he focuses on 10 different kinds of people whom he meets in the train. Next, what does he say about the middle-aged woman? Priestley explains that the middle-aged woman is a person with a rasping voice and a face of brass. She evades into the smoking compartments that are already filled with the smokers. She is described as a character who comes in shouting and bustling, and she is accompanied by a dog, and that is only 1 degree less offensive than her. Then, secondly, he talks about the heavy carriers, that is people who carry a lot of things. They are passengers who would go on a journey taking all their odd chattels and household utensils, parceling them in brown paper. Furthermore, they also carry baskets of fruits and bunches of flowers to add to their own and other people's sorrow. Next, he describes the non-stop eaters. They are described as simple folk who board the railway carriages for the sole purpose of eating and drinking. Once they are settled, they pass each other tattered sandwiches and scraps of pastry and talking with their mouths full and scattering crumbs over the trousers of careful gentlemen. Then we have the noisy children. These children are not good traveling companions. They whimper and howl throughout the journey. Also, they spend their time daubing their faces with chocolate or trying to climb out of the window of the trains. Then we have the cranks. The cranks are described as those who insist on keeping the windows open during the cold and desolate day, and they don't allow the windows to be open in the oppressively hot season due to fear of the cold air rushing in. Then we have the innocent people, the ones who always board the wrong train. Neither do they have the understanding to interpret the complicated railway timetables, nor do they ask the railway officials for advice. They climb into the train that comes first, and in the middle of the journey, they suddenly look round the carriage. They inquire whether they are in the right train or not. The writer has often wondered whether these people ever reach their destination. Then you have the mighty sleepers. They are the ones who have sleep at their command. Once they get into the train, they compose themselves and are off to sleep in a moment. 2 minutes or so from their destination, they wake up, collect their bags, and a moment later, they go out alert and refreshed. The author describes them as the descendants of the seven of Ephesus. So, what is the seven of Ephesus? It is a legend about the seven noble Christians who lived in Ephesus, in an ancient city in Greece. They took refuge in a cave, and the emperor, knowing this, ordered the caves to be closed. But by the intervention of God, they fell asleep for 187 years. When the cave was opened, they they died, and the men came to know that uh, that Christianity had spread everywhere, and they died happily. And then he discusses the seafaring men. They make good companions on a railway journey because they are always ready to crack with any man, to crack jokes. There is always an entertaining matter in their talk, but they are only met in the coastal towns. Then you have the confidential strangers who are rarely seen and are compared to a dull dog who forces the co-passenger to yawn through the lengthy story of his life. He takes pleasure in talking things up of his own interest. Then you have the elderly man. The elderly man is a neatly dressed person who is always seated in a corner. He opens his conversation by pulling out a pocket watch, a golden hunter, and remarking that the train is at least 3 minutes behind a schedule. And from then on, his talks will be only about trains. The author wants us to be aware of, to be beware of. There is a small mistake there. The author wants the readers to beware of the elderly man, for he is an ancient mariner of railway travelers. So this is, here we come to the end of the lesson. I have given you a brief summary of the 10 different travelers that the that the essayist meets on the train. So on page 20, students, you have comprehension section B, where you have the question: answer the following questions in about 300 to 350 words each. So the first question there: what are the different types of railway travelers that Priestley has come across? So you have the 10 different travelers, and you will give a brief explanation of all these points. You can make use of the summary or the points which I have given in the slides. So here we come to the end of that essay, Travel by Train. Students, please read the lesson over and over again. Go through the glossary that is there at the end of the text also. And in the next coming days, I will upload some more videos. So please study, pay attention to whatever is being taught in this video. Thank you, students.